All right, well, what's going on, everybody? I got a really cool video here today. Truthfully, I think this is a topic that needs to be said to a lot of people out there who are trying to fix their slice. I think there's ways that we can actually go about fixing this before the golf club ever even gets swung. So going into what happens with, I should say, with a lot of people is I think they're set up to slice the golf ball before the club ever gets taken away. So are there ways that we can present and put ourselves in certain positions at address that are going to ensure that we change the unwanted swing direction that we might have? Let's call it over the top, an outward to inward motion, something that is producing a curvature such as a slice on the golf ball. I think this needs to be built in with how we set ourselves up. I think we also need to be unbiased of what it looks like in order to actually change the motion without us trying to do a lot of crazy movements in the transition, where I think those are harder to predict, but they can also be harder to time. So if I'm going to go into cause and effects for what I like to see. If somebody is struggling with a slice, here's how I would generally look at it as a coach and how I would correct the player from doing this. So there's a few key points that I would hit on. Number one point is going to be the forearm alignments of the lead arm. So if we looked at this right in here, if I set the club down for just a sec. So if I look at my forearm alignments, okay, so this would be full pronation. So this would be the direction of my lead thumb. This would be full pronation. This would be moving into the form of supination. This would be full supination right here. So we can see how this dial can rotate quite a ways right here. Where I see players building in a slice most of the time is based on forearm movements at address before we've swung the golf club. I think a lot of people refer to it as a weaker grip. I prefer to look more at the forearm alignments, because a lot of times the forearm alignments, what I see, can actually determine how the hands go on the golf club. So if we looked at this as a dial right here, I'd say most players that slice the golf ball, they start, if we used this as a clock straight ahead from face on, I would call this 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. We could go close to 3 o'clock. I'd say that's a little bit too strong, but I would say most players that struggle with slicing the golf ball start here closer to 12 o'clock with their lead forearm position right here. Okay? Probably almost for surely slicing the golf ball for the majority of us, not saying everybody, because there are players that draw the ball from here too. I'm taking averages of what I've seen as a coach right here. So if I see anybody over here at 11 o'clock as a right-handed player, they're probably going to slice the golf ball. Okay, so the first place that I always start, and the reason I do this, is if I put my lead hand on, and there's my forearm position at 12 o'clock. Well, if I don't change anything right in here, the club's going to want to work a little bit more outside. The club is plain and simply going to want to work a little bit more outside unless I add a rotation component from the forearm. Now we can see what that actually does to the club face. That opens up the club face to the leading edge of the shaft right there. That's going to be point number 2 we're going to get into. Okay, and then if we start to add extension of the lead wrist, if there's any extension in the lead wrist, that club face remains open. And the direction that this forearm wants to work would most likely be more of an outward to an inward movement. So if I change the forearm alignment up, we went from 12, 1 to 2. So if I take my forearm alignment to 2, and I put this on and I keep this the same and I work the lead arm into my chest, we can see what that club face is starting to do in relation to the leading edge of the shaft. And this is without me flattening the wrist or anything. Okay, so this keeps our relationship of the face to the path a little bit more neutral right there. Okay, so I think the biggest thing we need to understand is a slice is going to be a club face that is open to the direction that we're swinging. Okay, so a face to path relationship that would be open, positive for a right-handed player if we're on TrackMan, negative for a left-handed player. So that would be the alignments right there. A lot of these are dictated based on the forearm. Now, I think the next place that everybody needs to understand, I'll do this from this camera view right here, is we have the leading edge of the shaft, which is a swing direction. I'm going to explain that now. So if we look at this from both face on and from down the line, okay, so if we started from face on here, you can see right in here, I've pushed the handle more forward. Okay, now if we pan down the line, we can see as I push this handle more forward, the direction of the club, especially if my forearm's at 2, is going to want to move on more of an inward to an outward path. So a forward press would be something that could help right there. Okay, if we pan face on, and then we'll go down the line again. If I go neutral with the shaft, we can see how that would be straight. If I go backwards with the shaft, if I get the grip behind the club head, you can see the swing direction would want to move from an outward to an inward movement. That can produce a slice based on the swing direction. It's still going to relate to what the face does in relation to that direction, but these are some of our causes of why this could happen. So we've got forearm alignments, firstly. Okay, so forearm alignment, I would say, starting here at 2 o'clock. Okay, so if I ran that again on the underside of my forearm right there, you can see how that would be at 2 o'clock where I'm gripping it, okay? It's not going to be here at 12 o'clock or even weaker, okay? Or more supinated, we could call it, okay? Now, the next place from there is once we understand that we have a forward press in, now we have to have the club face square. If we're going to draw it, we actually need it close to the leading edge of the shaft right there. So we would need to twist this face. You can see that would be closing the face to the leading edge of the shaft. If I twisted that this direction, we could see how that would be opening the face to the leading edge of the shaft. So when we look down, the leading edge of this golf club needs to be closed to the leading edge of the shaft. This is a necessity. This is basic 101 math. At impact, we need the club face closed to the leading edge of the shaft to draw it. We cannot have it open, or that will produce a spin that goes from left to right for a right-handed player. So basically, where we are right now is we would say forearm alignment is at 2. I grip it. Now I'm going to push the handle more forward, closer to where the ball joint on my lead shoulder would be, okay? I could even move the ball a few golf balls back of where the shoulder joint would be, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 3. I think you could go as excessive as 5, depending on how much you slice the golf ball, okay? And then next place we would go is we would have the club face gripped. We would close the face to the leading edge of the shaft, then grip it. So we now we're in a position to where this golf club, if it stays on its proper plane, can actually make a curvature, move from right to left, or a draw pattern, right to left being for the right-handed player, left to right for a left-handed player. We would have the curvature of more of a draw pattern. I hope you're enjoying today's YouTube video, and I just wanted to say thank you for watching, and I really do appreciate your support. If you're the player that's struggling with issues in their golf swing that YouTube might not be fixing, one of your options would be to head over to trevorsalzmangolf.com, where you can get and you could view all the online lesson packages that I offer as a coach. A lot of times players don't know what to work on, or if they are working on something, they don't know why it is they're working on it. And those are some of the things that I can help you clarify. So click on that link, head over there. Again, I appreciate your support. Thanks for watching, and now back to the video. Okay. Now, when we start to get into motion, here are some of our key parameters at impact. If I do this like I am swinging towards the camera, and you'll be able to see this also from down the line, is if I go here, if I move pressure backwards towards my trail foot and I swing, my direction is going to go more out to in. It has the ability to go more out to in. If I go pressure back, it's going to be really hard for this golf club to continue moving on the proper arc that we would have preset it at setup, that we would have it set up. It's going to be a lot harder to keep the golf ball going down the line, in other words. Okay, so if we did that again from here, from face on now, if we saw that, pressure back, we can see how the swing direction would go left. If I had at impact, my pressure is forward. This swing direction has the ability to go more to the right. So this is where I was saying, if this is our issue, we need to be unbiased of what it looks like and what it feels like to actually give ourselves the ability to produce the geometry that we need. Okay, so where I would go next is I've got forearm at 2, handle forward, face closed to the shaft. So I might start off and I'm going to present myself at impact. So I'm going to take my pressure, I'm going to move it more forward. My hips are still neutral. The lead side of the pelvis would be more over my lead foot. So now I know what it feels like to be here at impact, and I'm probably going to start here. So I've got the handle forward, pressure forward, forearm at 2, face closed to the shaft. Now the last piece to help ensure that the direction of the club is going to move to the right is we're going to take the center points on our spine. Straight ahead is 12 from face on. This is 12, 1, 2. I'm going to now set that down to where I'm pointed at 2 o'clock, because now that is presetting a direction that my arms have the ability to move, assuming the pressure stays forward. You can see if I go here and I shift the pressure backwards, now I can swing more out to inward. Okay? So your keys are going to be forearm at 2 o'clock, handle forward, face closed to the shaft. Now, before we swing the golf club, we're going to go pressure forward. And then we're going to take the chest and the pelvis and go 12, 1, 2. I'm going to point this at 2, and I'm going to keep this pressure forward, so I'm mimicking my feel at impact. And then from there, I'm just going to make a swing. Okay, so that golf ball started right, drew, and was very solid, and I didn't have to think about the motion change. What you will need to ensure that you do, when you video yourself in this, is seeing where your pressure gets to. This is one of the only ways that we can get in trouble, is if we have the pressure forward right here and we have our spine in this inclination, the arms and the shoulders have the ability to run at a right angle to the spine. Not saying that there's no rotation, but I would be willing to bet that if you're the slicer, your pressure is going back, we're turning, and this is why your hand path is kicking out, and then it is moving inward very quickly, and it's very difficult to control low point. It's difficult to control the face to path relationship, because swinging 10 to 15 degrees left, it doesn't make sense to close the face and hit it further left if you're the right-handed player. So let's do this one more time. I'll run you through what these steps are, and these are what you can do to help ensure that you are set up to hit a draw. Then we can go into the parameters of, if we aren't drawing it, why we aren't drawing it. If this doesn't do it, this should do it, I would say, for just about anybody who slices it watching this video when it's performed correctly. Okay, so I would go here, forearm, 12, 1, 2. Then I grip it, handle forward. The ball is behind my low point. Okay, the face is now slightly closed, 3 to 5 degrees to the leading edge of the shaft. Now from here, I'm going to go pressure forward. So the hip is over the center of the shoe, and you can see how I'm doing this. I'm not going this direct. I'm not going into a massive tilt or crazy right side bend. So I'm taking the center of the hip over the shoe. And then I'm going to take the center of my spine, 12, 1, 2. So I'm in there, forearms at 2, face is close to the shaft. Now I'm just going to make my normal swing, and I'm going to keep this pressure here. And every one of those 2 golf balls that I hit were literally perfect draws. Wasn't a full swing, but again, my goal with this is to change the swing direction without me having to think about doing anything crazy with my motion. It's not saying that the motion isn't the problem, but if we get the setup correctly, the motion will be less of the problem, and the motion's easier for us to figure out what it is that we need to get better at. But if we're not preset to actually hit the shot that we are intended to hit, it's going to be a heck of a lot harder for us to do that. So there's a way that we can start to draw the golf ball without changing the motion by controlling the environment that we're set up in. And this should give us some pretty quick results in getting the ball to draw versus slice, owning setup. I hope you enjoyed this video here. If you haven't, please click that subscribe button. You can also click the bell right there, and that's going to notify you every time that I release a new YouTube video. Also, if you haven't, check out that last video that I did. It's right here, pinned to the screen. Thank you so much for your support. I really do appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, any comments, please leave those below, and I will make sure I get back to each and every one of you. So, thank you again. Appreciate your support. We'll see you next time.